Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. We're going to get started in just a minute. While we're waiting for everyone to join us, if you want to go ahead and say hello in the chat box, let us know where you're joining us from. Hello, everyone. We're going to get started in just a minute. We're saying hello in the chat box right now. Awesome. Let's see what we have here. North Carolina, Massachusetts, Ohio. Hello, everyone. Let's see, Nebraska, Florida, lots of Georgia and some Hawaii, Texas and Pennsylvania, Michigan. Right, we're covering a lot of ground here. Great, thanks to everybody for joining us. We're going to go ahead and get started. Your phone line is currently muted. This webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording and slides will be made available to you. Welcome again, everyone. My name is Leslie Gabay Swanston. I'm the Director of Program and Systems Quality at the National Summer Learning Association. Welcome to our webinar, Supporting Youth Development Through Outdoor Exploration. Before we get started, here's another overview of what we're going to discuss today. I'll share a little bit about NSLA for those of you who are unfamiliar. Then we'll hear from our featured guests, and we'll have some time for you to ask them some questions at the end, and then we'll follow up with a few announcements. As we're going along, if you have any questions for our guests, please put them into the Q&A box. I'll try to catch them if they're in the chat box, but it's a little bit easier for us to keep track of them if you put them into the Q&A box so that we can ask and answer them live. So a little bit about NSLA. The National Summer Learning Association is the only national nonprofit exclusively focused on addressing the achievement and opportunity gaps by increasing access to summer learning opportunities. NSLA's goal is to increase nationwide the number of high-quality summer learning programs. To achieve this goal, NSLA recognizes and disseminates what works, offers expertise and support for programs and communities, and advocates for summer learning as a solution for equity and excellence in education. NSLA's work is driven by the belief that all children and youth deserve high-quality summer learning experiences that will help them succeed in college, career, and life. Core to our work is the recognition that high-quality summer learning programs work and have been shown to improve reading and math skills, school attachment, motivation, and relationships with adults and peers. So as an organization, we produce a number of different types of resources. One of our most recent ones is a series of parent PSAs. So I'm going to play you quickly just the first in this series of PSAs.
Let's face it, it's been tough with schools, playgrounds, parks, and pools closed for months. But we can't let COVID-19 steal the joy of learning and fun. Parents, you have and always will be your child's first and most important teacher. Remember, learning happens anywhere. So rock fractions with a fun recipe, go build a pillow fort, race earthworms, or get lost in a book. You've got this, and we've got you, with these tips to support fun learning adventures at home. Let your child's curiosity drive learning adventures. Dive into critical skills like reading and math. Check out these learning resources from our partners. Communicate your observations about your child's learning with teachers. Embrace good nutrition and sleep routines. Volunteer in your community. Stay active and healthy. Wash hands, social distance, wear masks. Don't forget to take time for you. This message is brought to you by the National Summer Learning Association. Visit summerlearning.org to learn more.
So I will make sure to send you a link to that if you want to share that with any parents that you're in touch with. It's also available on our website, summerlearning.org. And this is another resource that is available on our website that we developed this summer. It's a COVID-19 playbook. So some of the best resources that we've seen some of our partner organizations around the country on how they're addressing and resources that they have developed over the last summer to address programming during COVID-19. So next I wanted to introduce our first set of guest speakers from Outward Bound, Ginger Mahalik, Executive Director of the Baltimore Chesapeake Bay Outward Bound, and Nikki Taverin, Vice President of Education at Thompson Island Outward Bound Education Center. Nikki and Ginger.
Yep. So Nikki and I have bumped heads together, and we are collaborating on how we present and how we're going to talk to you all. And so we're going to give a quick overview of who we are and what we're doing. And then Nikki's going to talk about what her program in Thompson Island has been doing. And I'm going to share with you how we pivoted our program in May as a result of COVID to stay relevant. So that's just a quick overview of what we're going to share with you. We've got a couple of videos too that we're going to share pieces of. So just really quickly, Outward Bound is an outdoor education school that is focused on social emotional learning. And in Nikki's case, they have adapted it to do that, but also teach 21st century science skills to students as well. And she can say more about that. My school is very focused on social emotional learning, and we haven't delved into any of the academic stuff yet. But we do have a curriculum that is focused on kids. And, you know, as the name sounds, Outward Bound, you would imagine we're in the outdoors, we're with kids, we are physically with kids all the time. So when COVID hit for us, it was dramatic. To say the least, because suddenly we were not allowed to be in person, which is what we do all the time. And for my school, our primary programming is that we work with schools. Those schools are bringing their students to us either on a one-day program where they're outside doing team initiatives, team building, learning social emotional skills together, or they're going out on an expedition and using our curriculum in the classroom where the kids are together for 5 days out in the wilderness, either backpacking, canoeing, or sea kayaking together. So obviously a lot of those programs got tilted on their heads in March. All of our work with schools got turned upside down as schools all closed and everybody needed to be distant. And so for us, we had a big pivot, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But Nikki, do you want to take it and talk about what you guys are doing, were doing before the world fell apart?
Sure, thanks, Ginger. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here with you today. I'm excited to share a little bit about our work. As Ginger said, Outward Bound, it's all about getting kids and adults really outdoors. And I think one of the interesting things, there are 11 Outward Bound schools here in the US, and there's some really big similarities between our schools, primarily in the Northeast, starting with Baltimore up through Boston, is that we have a heavier focus on our school partnerships and how we work with the school districts that are near our sites and our locations. And so Ginger told you a little bit about their program model. Our two main programs and partnerships with the schools that we work with focus on middle school students and use Outward Bound. And we're on an island actually in the Boston Harbor, about 204 acres, but it has quite a few different ecosystems. So we actually use the island as an extension of the science classroom. So all of the things that we would do at Outward Bound with our programming, with sea kayaking, and with backpacking, we put that all together and take almost like a field science approach to teaching STEM to students in partnerships with schools. And actually, I have a video that will show you that'll explain a little bit more about that.
Curiosity sort of wakes up the brain and gets the neurons firing. In the classroom, it's limited by the four walls and the desks and the way in which we do learning in school. Outside of school, you have much more hands-on experience in different settings, out of doors, with different kinds of materials and different kinds of people. So that opens up the curiosity, the motivation, and the opportunity for experiential learning to occur.
Thompson Island has been partnering with the Boston Public Schools for years. Currently, our work here is to become an extension of the science classroom in BPS. We work with their science teachers in their schools to combine what they're doing in science, bring it out to the island, and mix that in with social-emotional development.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Hannah. I will be your course director for this course. I'm so excited to see you all again.
Students actually get to come out to the island multiple times over multiple years. And we also try to make sure that the students are working with the same instructors and course directors over time.
Learning is driven by relationships and experiences. We're open to an experience because of the relationship. Once we're in that experience, curiosity is what turns the brain on the most. So when we are setting up situations in which we are giving young people that freedom to explore, we are really giving them the freedom to use their full brains.
Our island is 204 acres with multiple ecosystems on it. And we use different ecosystems to do different lessons with the students. Everything from the diversity of life to salinity of water and density to using the island's natural features and looking at geology. And so we take all of those things, we combine them with team building and outward bound programs that bridge the academics and the social emotional development together.
Experiences like this build both the student capacity to analyze and observe and infer and use the scientific method. And they're also building the school capacity to offer these rich outdoor experiences that are very, very vivid and promote stronger learning.
The salt marsh activity that we do, that's one of the ways that they can start to really understand the interactions between systems. And in this case, it was whole organisms interacting in an ecosystem.
You see this brown thing with the tentacles?
Until we apply learning, we don't really have it. And that's always been a challenge with the way our public schools are built. Now, there are many, many exceptions, but we learn from experiences.
On the classrooms, we had like information, but now we're actually seeing it.
These are some of the species of plants and animals that live in this salt marsh ecosystem. We're gonna take turns drawing lines. If you think that a card that's in front of you interacts with a different card.
I think that would eat the shrimp. This periwinkle with this.
It did remind me of something that we did in science class with all of the systems.
It was like the animal food chain kind of in the salt marsh.
Or what if all of a sudden the amount of herring gulls quadrupled?
When we think about experiential learning, I'm not just giving you information and content. I'm not just showing you. I'm actually letting you experience that content.
Never see you again, but goodbye.
So as you can see, that's a little bit about what we do in person, and we tried to figure out how to transition all of that over the summer. And we actually, Ginger School, the Chesapeake School, has done a lot of work to help the organization pivot. So I'm going to kick it over to Ginger to talk about how do you take what we do outdoors to a remote setting.
Thanks. So Yeah, that's a big question, right? We walked into March, and I'm sure like most of you, 2 weeks into it, I was like, well, it's going to be like a big snow day. We're all going to go home. It's going to be great. And then we'll all be back to work. And it kept going and going and going. And I had the moment, as did all the executive directors at the Outward Bound USA schools had, as well as international executive directors. I got an email from the Outward Bound director of Vietnam saying, what are you guys doing? How are you figuring this out? So once we realized that this was not going to stop and, you know, that this was going to be an ongoing reality for us for the foreseeable future, we decided we needed to pivot. And mostly, I'm sure, again, like most of the folks that are on this call or on this webinar, you know, you end up in the very tough position of how do you keep your staff? How do you stay together long enough in order to survive and to make sure that you can still serve students and that things don't fall apart? And so as I sat and thought about it, I was actually taking a yoga class and had this like, okay, here's what we've got to do moment. And it hit me, and I got off and called my leadership team and basically said, okay, we're going to have to go virtual. And what's really hard, I think, for us, being outdoor educators, nobody was really thrilled about that idea. There was not a single person that was super excited about, let's take all this and go to the computer. I'm sure much like teachers in the classroom weren't thrilled about it either. But we essentially managed to get the entire team pivoted, get everybody focused in one direction. And the goal was to walk into the school year with a solution, a social emotional learning solution for schools that would help them, that would be something that they needed and not something that we were pushing on them. So we started with our team interviewing 42 different educators and asking them what they needed. By that point, it was May, and they had gone through a couple of months of trying to teach virtually. And there were a lot of lessons already that the teachers had said, like, I don't need something else thrusted on me that I need to do. I need you guys to come in and deliver it. I need you to help me. Social emotional learning was basically out the window because every resource was being sucked into how do I teach math? How do I teach English? So putting any time or energy in to develop something around social emotional learning was almost impossible. So we took all the feedback that we had and essentially took 6 weeks, designed a product, and then the next 6 weeks laying out the lessons that we would share with our school community. So there was a thing that Outward Bound uses called the Domains of Thriving, and it's essentially a wheel that was developed in partnership with the Nome Institute at Harvard. And it talks about the conditions for learning. And then inside of it, it has these different rubrics that we try to hit in all of our programming. And so we figured out of the 4, physical engagement, courage, belonging, and reflection, and there's additional rubrics inside of them. Out of those 4 domains, we figured out ways to create online lessons that tapped into courage, belonging, and reflection. Belonging being a heavy one for us because we heard loud and clear from teachers that they had students that were not turning their cameras on. They weren't connected. They didn't feel like they were together. And a lot of panic from teachers about what happens when we start after the summertime, what happens when we start back to school and I'm in a classroom with a bunch of kids that I've never met, they don't know each other. How am I going to create a team in a classroom that works well together? So we basically set out on creating those sessions and finding a way to do it, and have been successful, not without a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but we've managed to do it. And so I'm going to, Leslie, if you can play the video, we'll play this short video. We're going to stop at about the 2-minute mark because doesn't need to go longer, and I'll tell you when that is.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yep. I know you can't see the time on this.
It's a virtual classroom with real-world curriculum. Our new programs take our wilderness and classroom-based character curriculum onto a virtual platform.
I would say some of my favorite moments have been just interacting with the students online. It's something that we've never done before. So if I'm asking them a question over Zoom, like immediately they're all typing into the chat. All the answers are popping up, boom, boom, boom. And it's exciting just to see how engaged they are.
When I came in, I was like, all right, so we're just gonna, talk through some lessons, and that's gonna be it. It was completely not that at all. What we really got was, right off the bat, was heavy engagement.
Designed to teach and enhance social emotional learning skills, These sessions have students engage in interactive initiatives led by our own Outward Bound facilitators.
Scavenger hunt was really fun. I also like Truth or Dare.
I also really like the Simon Says one because it made me use my brain. It was really fun.
Jump left.
Jump left.
Jump right.
So on the count of 3, everyone's gonna hold up and show their object, okay? 1, 2, 3.
It's like a program where you can know more about each other and actually understand others.
So it was really cool. All of a sudden, they unmute and they're like, all right, here's what we're gonna do. And as soon as they started talking, everybody else was like, oh, thank God, they're talking now. And then the rest of the group kind of chimed in. For kids that don't know each other, to have gone that far in 4 weeks, to basically be leading some of these activities themselves, is just really, really incredible to watch.
Okay, Leslie, you can stop there. So you can see, I got to tell you, every time I watch that video, this just came hot off the presses maybe 3 days ago. And every time I watch it, I get so proud of all those people that work so hard to make this thing happen. So we are at the spot right now that we're going to serve 20 schools this fall. And it will look like about 7,000 program days over the entire fall season. And that sort of extends all the way to December, so a little bit longer than fall. But we found a way to pivot. We found a way to create something that our donors in our community were excited about, that they could get engaged with and support. We found a way to meet the kids where they are and meet the schools where they are and be a help rather than another task that they had to accomplish. We have had a goal since about a decade ago that we wanted to be the best educational partner that we could be, rather than just a field trip or, a place where schools shunt their kids off to. And I'm pretty proud of where we ended up, because I think with this effort, as hard as it was, we managed to do that. There's a ton of leadership challenges with it. There are a lot of challenges, and there's going to continue to be for the next 9 months or so, I think. But yeah, that's our pivot. That's what we did. And fingers crossed, it's working all right now. So I think we were going to leave it open and see if there were any questions, or Leslie, you can move us on.
Yeah, there was one question in here. I'm not sure if it's probably for Nikki. Can you share your curriculum? Or maybe you can talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, sure. So where we had a very sort of similar trajectory to Ginger and her team. And what we focused on moving into was, so we had our 4-year program where students come from 5th through 8th grade. And, with everything that was going on, we lost a lot of staff. My team went from a full-time team of 19 to 9, and we didn't have any of our seasonal staff. So we had to figure out what could we do and what could we actually deliver. We were able to hire and bring on 4 staff members. And so what we did was we said, look, we know that over the course of time, 6th graders are going to be the ones that we're going to be able to rebuild our program with and keep our relationships going with the school. So we decided to focus in on our 6th graders first. And then once we got 6th grade all set and squared away, then we would branch out to 5th grade, 7th and 8th grade, and then looking at how we could set things up for the summer. Because a big part of it was family engagement. Because ideally, by the time we get to the summer, we'll be able to have students in person in some way, shape, or form. So what we actually did was New York City Outward Bound runs programs in partnership with New York City Public Schools and the Expeditionary Learning, and they have what they call as a crew class, and it's like an advisory class. And so we took that model and we shifted it, and we took our programming and meshed it with what their crew classes look like. And so we're running 8 to 10 week programs with all of the 6th graders that we work with across our 8 partner schools. So it's going to be about 650 students that we'll work with. We started in September, and we'll work with them through March to do these 8-week sessions where they meet once a week with 2 of our instructors and small crews of about 12 students for 45 minutes, focusing on social emotional development. And so what does it mean to actually transition back into school, build a school community, And one thing that we were really excited about with the partnership, based on what we had, the partnerships that we had developed with our schools and in the past, we're actually doing and running the programs during the school day, either during their advisory or during their science classes. And then the teachers are leveraging it in different ways. So because we have this sort of STEM base at one of our schools, the science teacher is using it as a part of her Think Like a Science curriculum. So you can still persevere through a challenge, you can still do teamwork, you can still find ways to communicate, but leveraging the 8-week crew class to be able to do that. We're also running what we're calling mini expeditions. If you're familiar with Outward Bound, one of our main things is we send students on expeditions. So anywhere from 5 days to it could be a semester-long course of 60 days. And so in a virtual setting, that transitions to 90 minutes or 3 hours for us. And so students will get to participate in these mini expeditions over the course of the year. So it's looking really good right now. It's working out with the teachers. You know, a big part of it is student engagement, and then also helping reach out to parents with the family engagement. But like Ginger said, one of the things that we noticed was that everybody was just throwing stuff at people. And so what did they want and what did they need, and how could we fit into what their plan was going to be to help them reach students and families.
Thanks, Nikki. So we have another question, but I'm going to hold that to the end so we can hear from our next group here. So I'd like to introduce next Chrissy Word, Director of Education at CityParks Foundation, and Nesia Clark, Associate Director of Youth Development at CityParks Foundation. Chrissy and Nesia.
Hello, everyone. Hi, thank you so much to NSL for this opportunity. I have Christy here with me who will assist as needed and will chime in as needed and will answer questions as needed. So basically, Green Girls Empowered by ING After School is a STEM-based environmental education program that focuses on urban parks and waterways. The program encourages participants to realize their potential and to create change within the natural environment. Through science experiments, authentic field experiments in parks, environmental stewardship, and advocacy, Green Girls aim to empower girls and gender-expansive youth to participate in the STEM field and inspire the next generation of scientists and scholars. Students not only develop an understanding of the urban ecosystem, regional and global environmental issues, they learn about future careers and making lasting friendships with others. So I have here a visual overview of the program that I would like to share with you.
What are you girls doing now?
We're going to cut the radishes.
You're cutting the radishes?
We weighed them, we cleaned them, now we're going to cut them.
And it came from this garden over here?
This is my second year, actually.
Do you love it?
Like the best thing in the whole wide world. We go traveling, you get to actually have experience, you get to climb trees, you get to have fun, you get to be a kid.
Getting your hands dirty and getting into the dirt, it's a lot more fun than you think. You really feel like you're making an impact.
Cheers!
To be able to come into the program, go through the program, and then at the end say, you know, I can be a scientist, you know, I can be an engineer, and I can understand different kinds of technology. So it's really about removing the barriers for young women that keep them from moving in those directions.
Everybody thinks that the science and medical career is a man's world, but women are more than capable of taking up these jobs jobs in helping our world as environmentalists. And I think it's really important because we need more people out there, and it's important that women can be the representatives of these different field careers, which can inspire more little girls watching them to aspire to be them.
What have you been doing? Tell me what you were playing with the oysters about.
Well, we were playing with the oysters. We've been measuring them, and then we've also found other living organisms like the sea squirts. When you press them, they squirt water at you as a defense mechanism. I've always wanted to be a veterinarian because I really like animals.
Would you ever work in science or education?
Yeah, my mom always said I was probably going to become a scientist.
Why is it so important that these girls understand education when it comes to climate change?
A really important part of female empowerment is getting young people and young women of color to understand who climate change is going to affect, and then having them develop the voice and the words and the knowledge to say, hey, this can't happen in my country. This is why I need to be politically active. This is why I need to vote. This is why I need to talk about it at school.
Awesome. Hi, Chrissy. Okay, so I'll go ahead and share my slide with you. Okay, so like the video said, basically we operate all year round. We have an after-school program, and we also have a summer institute. Like shared before, we're a STEM-based environmental program. We focus on the urban parks. Now, we service over 60 plus students throughout New York City in Queens, Bronx, and Brooklyn. Our curriculum, it focuses on urban forest, drinking water, quality water. We have advocacy, focuses on environmental justice. Service focuses on leadership and self-empowerment. So I know this is kind of small, but this is a sample of our 2019 Summer Institute, some of the topics and what our typical day would look like. We would visit multiple sites. Some of our topics are, we definitely have stewardship programs. We speak about invasive species, dragonfly surveys, investigating and looking up the trees. There will be paddling. And as you can see, that would visit multiple locations, Randall Island, the Alley Pond Park, Central Park. I'm hearing the music. Are you guys hearing music?
I am. I think that might be, is it from your browser maybe, from the video thing?
Let's see. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's good, Nick.
Okay, I'll just X that out because I'm still hearing it. Okay, there we go.
I don't hear it anymore, Nicia.
Okay, great. Okay, so normally we have an internship program, and we have interns from high school and also college interns. Definitely leadership is something that's strongly promoted and encouraged from our students and also our interns. Career training, and we also value mentorship. And mentorship is a huge part of our program. We have service and learning activities, developing a sense of place, leadership opportunities, connecting with professionals. I know this summer they were able to clean up beaches and clean up the park that they had their program at, and that was definitely a success. So COVID, as we all know it, I don't want to say it has become a norm, but it somewhat has become a norm. And I have here our COVID edition. I'll share this with you.
Hey guys, hey Alexa, hey Maya. What are we up to right now? What are you guys doing?
Well, we are creating a town, which is more of a kingdom.
Medievalish.
Medievalish, kind of. We're adding a bunch of things to make a kingdom. So we have our castle, we have the mines. We're gonna create a farm, hospitals, and a military of stickmen.
We love that. Okay. And do you guys know, what was the thing that was over here? Like, what did Jen or Destiny draw in the sand over here?
Oh, this is our river, so that's like our source of water.
Yeah, so Val's right now is digging like
over there.
Yeah,
so that the water can
extend it.
Okay, cool. So you guys are building a society along a water source. Pretty cool. We'll see what happens next.
Yeah.
So as you can see here, they were building a society and, you know, they have their mask on, but they're still participating in doing the activities. We have here another video that I'd like to share with you. And
mind if I add this yet?
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to add that, you know, because of COVID this year, there were some things that we could not do in our program. At that site in particular, we might have actually been rowing with our students. That's a site that we stage normally for our coastal classroom program, and our green girls come every summer and go rowing there as well. But that activity that the girls were doing is called A River Runs Through It. And it's actually an activity that helps students to understand that what happens to water when human beings develop our watersheds. So, you know, it might have looked like the kids were playing in the sand, and they were. We want them to play and have fun, but there was also definitely a science-based activity that was couched in.
And then we have.
Oh no, you were doing great. Okay, let's do it. Can I hear it?
It's raining tacos out of the sky. Tacos. No need to ask why. Just open your mouth and close your eyes. It's raining tacos.
It's raining tacos out of the sky.
Never understood how to do that. Don't throw things at me. This is.
So I thought it was kind of cute and interesting to share these videos just to show that, you know, yes, we're outside and yes, we're learning science and yes, we're learning about the environment, but they're having fun doing that and they're building these relationships and they're building these long lasting friendships. And I thought that was very interesting to show. I have here a COVID edition with the instructor.
Okay. Okay. Hi, everybody. It is week 1 of Green Girls and day 4. So we made it through the first week of Green Girls COVID edition. And today we are doing a big community day. So we are doing a couple things. We're doing a couple trust activities to build our own community. And then we're doing a lot of thinking and developing activities on what does community mean to us and how can we ask questions of who is in our community and who do we have responsibility for. And we're also working with Socrates Sculpture Park to learn about what community means to them.
So some of the challenges, and I think Chrissy had touched on some of them, is the fact, you know, normally we would have been able to do a lot more. And so we did have to alter our lessons. However, we did implement our lessons. So social distancing, of course, was a challenge. Even though it was maintained by staff and by students, it was a constant reminder. And, you know, kids, they want to be close to each other. We constantly had to remind them. We had site limitations. Normally, like I shared with the curriculum, we were able to visit multiple sites for the summer. However, we were only able to stay at the one site. And so we made the best from the site, of which we're super grateful we were able to have the opportunity to have an in-person program there. Separation of the groups. So normally we would have a morning group and an afternoon group. And so there would be 2 groups running at the same time in the morning, 2 groups running at the same time in the afternoon. However, these groups never cross paths. So they would be in a complete opposite side. And so normally, you know, during a regular year, the big groups would come together. They would have, you know, fun together, but we maintain small groups. Normally we would have outside facilitators that would come in as well, and we had to limit that as well and some of their field experiences. And certainly we had to change and adapt our lesson plan to fit the park that we were at, and also to fit the restrictions from COVID. So some new ideas and innovations and partnerships. So like I said, Socrates Sculpture Park, we're super happy and thankful to them that they allowed us to be at their park. So normally we would most definitely visit their park throughout the summer, have a trip there, but we were there the entire summer. And this year we took part of some of their artwork and sculpture installation with the artists. The students were able to see the artists putting it together and see how an exhibition is done, and to participate in that. Normally they would do journaling. However, they did a more in-depth journaling and reflection, and it was super helpful. It was helpful to have conversations about how they're feeling, and it also assisted with their social and emotional learning. There were a lot of leadership roles that were given. Yes, we have always given leadership roles, but this year in particular, we implemented it even stronger. So for example, with our interns, because we had multiple groups running at the same time and we had to separate the groups, interns now had to become strong, independent leaders. And even though we had the program manager that will go around and make sure everything is running smoothly, they still had to implement their activities, implement service and learning activities as well, and also made decisions. So of course, next summer, we are totally hoping that things will go back to normal. Will it go back to normal? I am not sure. But what we do know is that from having this experience, that we are certainly prepared for what next summer brings to us. So we will definitely still have Green Girls Empowered by ING running, whether it's in person, whether virtually. So normally we have staff training, and this summer, most of the staff training was conducted online. Well, we normally would have staff training online and also in person. We have shadowing experiences. So a part of the staff orientation, basically, just a quick rundown of some of the things that they would go through. They would go through what the typical day looks like, their schedule, the different type of lessons, classroom management, and how to also demonstrate these lessons and implement these lessons. They would go over what the staff community contract looked like. And towards the end, also, they have an opportunity where they'll be able to showcase their work, what they have done, how they have developed as an intern. They learn about various heat illnesses, because it's summer, it's hot, they're outside. And so we wanted to be able to recognize different signs. They engage in behavior management activities. What makes them trigger? What would possibly trigger a student? How to manage their emotions. And also we gave them sensitivity activities as well. And one game in particular, which is called Alien Makes a PB and Jelly game activity. So basically, I've never played it before, but the idea of the game is that you are an alien and you have to communicate an activity or describe something to another island or another creature or another alien, and you have to be as descriptive as possible, not assuming that the student or that alien or that person or that place knows. So even if you're telling someone to open a jar, you now have to say you have to pick up the jar, you may have to screw it to the left or to the right, just being very detailed. So this activity helps them to say, you know, do not assume that each student understands what you're saying. Be as clear with them so that we can have a productive program. So for the fall semester, yes, we have fall, yay, we're super excited for that. We will not be in person, however, we will be online. And our first session actually will begin today. Last week we had orientation and we are almost full to capacity. However, we are still accepting applications. Green Girls Empowered by ING, the national curriculum, we're working on that right now with hopes that we'll be able to share it with other after-school programs. And Chrissy, if you would like to chime in and add anything that I may have missed.
No, that was wonderful. Thank you so much, Nisia. We'll just be ready for questions, Leslie.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So now it's time for questions. If you have any questions for our guests, please put those into the Q&A box. We have a couple in here already. One, Ginger, that you had already addressed, but I'm going to ask you again. But this is for anybody. What do you measure, and how do you measure the success of the program? So Ginger, maybe you can start out with your partnership with Johns Hopkins.
Yeah, so I don't know about the size of most of the organizations here, but while we're a national organization and we're a federated group of schools, we're each our own little 501c3. So really each of us is a small business or a small nonprofit on our own, even though we have these sister schools all over the place. So in our school, we did not have the capacity to do a really legitimate study and evaluation of our programs. What we did have is we had a staff member who had ended up going to Johns Hopkins School of Public Health and then got us into a program and essentially said, I want to do a study. We ended up making a bunch of friends in that department. And then we went after some big money together and got some funding from the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, which was great. We got $500,000 from them that went through Hopkins to study our programs. So that was sort of the start of a really awesome relationship. That was about 6 years ago. We've continued to do different studies with them, but it was a way for us to almost co-opt a whole department of a university to do our evaluation and study. They designed the tool. We have administered it, and that relationship has grown and grown, and they've studied different pieces of our program, that sort of thing. But for us with the social emotional skills, there's a couple of different things that we look at. We look at self-control, emotional self-efficacy, social problem solving. And then as we partnered with Harvard and Nome, I know that there's an evaluation tool that's coming out that is now looking at those domains of thriving that I was talking about earlier. Nikki, do you want to add on to what and how you guys measure? Just one last thing though, I would highly suggest if you're a small organization and you've got to figure out how to do evaluations, find a university to partner with. It's been really great for us.
For us in Boston, we're actually fortunate because there is a partner convening organization called Boston Beyond. And in partnership with the Boston Public Schools, Boston Beyond serves as a convener of different organizations and community partners working in the schools. And with that, we partner with the Nome Institute. And so we're actually lucky at Thompson Island because Outward Bound USA, sort of the governing body that both of our schools are under, partnered with the Nome. So we have one set of tools to use. Let me back up because this sounds really confusing. Yes, we have a set of evaluation tools that we use. It's through the Nome Institute and it's called PAIR, and it's partnered through Boston Beyond in partnership with Boston Public Schools. There's a variety of indicators. If you're familiar with, it's similar to CASEL, a lot of the different organizations that are measuring social emotional learning. The one piece with what we use with PAIR also measures STEM and student engagement in STEM. There are multiple tools that we use in the suite that allows teachers or instructors to be able to measure student growth. It allows students to be able to measure themselves. And then there are a few other assessments that sort of look at a holistic does a holistic student assessment. And we're fortunate because we can look at our data year over year across our different programs, as well as in comparison with different subgroups. So I definitely agree with Ginger. If you have the opportunity to partner either with other organizations and go in as a collective to be able to leverage evaluation tools, or partner with the university, it's been wonderful for us. And while there are a lot of different indicators that we're looking at, what we're focused on this year are critical thinking, teamwork, and perseverance, because those can work back and forth. It crosses nicely across all of the different programs that are using the evaluation suite that we have access to.
Great. Chrissy or Nisia, did you want to add anything to that, or we have another question too?
Thank you. We definitely evaluate our programs every year since the inception of the program in 2002. evaluation has mostly been constructed internally. And we use things like pre and post surveys, observations, rubrics, project rubrics in particular, exit cards, things like that, that are pretty typical evaluation tools. One thing that we have struggled with understanding over the years is really long-term impacts on students, and thankfully also because of some funding that came through through ING over a 3-year period, where now we've engaged a New York City-based consultant that is going to help us to really evaluate not only the current tools and questions that we're asking, but also how can we now make the leap into really understanding how our program affects students on a long-term basis. We do measure some socio-emotional learning for sure. That's a big aspect of our program. But also, one of the main goals to understand for us is science learning, of course, but also place-based learning. So attitudes toward place in terms of not just the environmental space, but also the community. And so a lot of what we're measuring is attitudes beginning to end. And then a little bit later, we've been able to do over the last few years, you know, what is the student's attitude toward the program, toward the learning within the program, and towards the space. You know, we run out of 4 different areas, so we have had to adapt that for each neighborhood, but that's what our evaluation looks like. Next year, we'll be able to tell you a lot more about measuring long-term impacts.
I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you.
So we have a question, I think that's applicable to COVID-19 and just kind of how people are operating. Were there any hurdles related to release forms or waivers for the students to participate? Was there any, did any of you have to go through any kind of legal consultation, anything like that? Anybody feel free to jump in?
We were lucky to be able to work with the Lawyers Alliance pro bono back last spring. When actually it was late spring really, when we kind of made the jump decision that we would run in-person programming in the summertime. And so the Lawyers Alliance jumped in with us and offered pro bono consultation. It was a lot of back and forth over several weeks. I mean, we were basically running to the finish line with the waiver, which frankly, I thought seemed kind of scary as a parent. I was like, oh, I don't know if I would sign this thing, you know, but it worked. And I think it also sent the message to parents that we were very, very serious about COVID safety protocols, and we insisted that families be very serious about the COVID safety protocols. So the waiver helped us to communicate that and was very effective in the end.
So we have just a few minutes left, so I'm going to try to get to these last 2 questions really quickly. How do you select students who are participating, particularly for Green Girls Empowered? How do you address racial and social economic equity with participants, program, et cetera? And that's for anybody.
We we focus our programs in neighborhoods that we feel are not just feel, but that we've researched and understand our underserviced neighborhoods in terms particularly of out-of-school time opportunities. CityParks Foundation runs a very large array of programming, including lots of adult advocacy programming in our Partnerships for Parks division, sports programming for children and adults, and also we run the largest outdoor festival called Summer Stage. So we do have some resources there to research the neighborhoods, but we're looking at indicators in the neighborhoods that help us to understand that our program could be you know, really utilized by the community and that families would welcome us. We've been in these neighborhoods for years now, so we now know that we are welcomed there and wanted, but initially, you know, we're looking at indicators such as population rates, some medical indicators, obesity rates, diabetes rates. We're looking at the growth of immigrant populations in those neighborhoods and various other factors that help us to determine whether or not we're needed.
So we have a last question here. Can you share an example of a lesson that is done virtually for students that may be used, I guess, used in different areas or environments? This person would appreciate any help getting their creative juices flowing. So Ginger, maybe you have any you can share?
Yeah, so some of these virtual lessons are hard to describe without showing them to you. Our curriculum, so we have a curriculum that was designed around specific outcomes, right, that we're typically delivering in the classroom. And so then when we took it online, the big challenge was, what are the things that you can do online that actually relate well online? And so a typical program for us would be structured with an icebreaker, which is a game that kids, when they come in online, I'm just going to walk you through a couple of them real quick so it makes sense. When they come in and immediately check in, like if you were checking into this webinar, what you would walk into as a game. And so sometimes it's a hangman game, sometimes it's something else, but it's a way to bring people in and immediately get them engaged and get them talking and break the ice, get them having fun. One of the big problems that teachers have with schools and with their students is they don't turn their cameras on. And I have 4 teenage boys, and I can tell you that I walk past their bedrooms and they're like laying in bed with their phone. You know, I'm like, sit up, get engaged. So we'll start with those kinds of games just to get them engaged, get them talking, get them laughing, getting, you know, going with each other. And then there are a couple of different activities. One of them we do around communication. So essentially you've got, if Nikki was the facilitator, she might say, I'm going to describe something that you're going to draw. And so obviously they can't see what she's looking at, but you know, she might give them a couple of directions and then everybody holds it up to their screen and you see that everybody's picture looks very different. And then you can facilitate a conversation around like, well, what would have made that easier? What kind of things could we do differently that would make us, and I think the game's called Carbon Copy, would make it so that all of our drawings would look exactly the same when we hold them up the next time. And so they'll go through and we use that little sticky board. I forget what the name of that board is, but we use that to capture the ideas. And so kids will say things that are like, well, Nikki needs to give more clear directions and she needs to give more detail. And, you know, then the facilitator will say, well, what could the listener do? What are the kinds of things that they could do differently? And, you know, so they come up with a game plan and then they do it again. And it's almost like magic. Everybody has this like carbon copy because they've identified very specifically all the things in communication that could make that communication go more smoothly. And then obviously you can facilitate a conversation around how does this apply to your real life? Where do you find yourself in situations where good communication or using some of these same skills we just identified, where could they also be helpful? And so then that becomes a really robust conversation that leads to learning and thinking through like, how could I be a better communicator, a better listener, that sort of thing. So that's sort of a sample of the activities, but you know, that's challenging. And it took a little while to figure out like, how can we do this online so it's actually effective and you've got kids engaged and talking.
Leslie, could I also add, so what we realized that especially with like whatever lesson it is that you decide to do, it's having the proper resources. So we have done it where we did not provide the resources to the students. And so they had to be creative. They went into their kitchens, whether their parent provided things for them. And so this time around, we have the discussion that we would have like a pickup station. So at least we'll provide them with the resources. This way, whatever your lesson is, they're better prepared to participate in the lesson. So providing the resources that they may need for that lesson.
Right. So unfortunately, we are out of time right now. So I just want to wrap up with a few things. And before I do that, I want to say thank you to our speakers for joining us today and sharing. I'm going to send a follow-up email to everybody so you'll have links to all the resources, all the videos and stuff that they shared, and ways to contact them if you have additional questions. I just wanted to wrap up by saying, make sure that you look out for more webinars in our Voices of Summer webinar series. You can look back at some of our past webinars on our website in the webinar section if you want to see more. And also, we just want to make an announcement about a special series that we have coming up in November 6th through the 18th, our Summer Solutions Leadership Series. It's going to be 3 days of speakers. We're lining up. We have Dr. John King. We have, oh gosh, I can't remember all the people right now. It's going to be a really exciting lineup. We're going to be announcing it soon, so look out for announcements about that. And also next week, our Summer Learning Awards. I didn't mention this. I didn't mention this today, but both Green Girls and Thompson Island are 2 of our past Summer Learning Award winners. So the application for that is going to be opening next week. So look out for announcements about that. If the best way to hear those announcements is to follow us on social media. So on Twitter or Facebook, you can sign up on our website, join our community to learn more and stay in touch. So like I said, I will follow up with everybody and send an email with links to everything that you saw today. Great, I hope you had you learned something new, and we will be in touch. Thank you.